I don't know if I can top this cookie. It's literal cookie perfection. Welcome to Elizabeth Eats. I'm Elizabeth, and it is Christmas Cookie Week. I celebrate Christmas, whatever holidays your family celebrates. I hope you will enjoy these cookie recipes as holiday treats for your family as well. We are going to make 3 different types of Christmas cookies this week. We're going to start with chocolate crackle cookies. My family calls them crinkles. We're going to do an almond flour cookie and almond flour shortbread that is absolutely divine. And the third cookies are a chocolate chip cookie recipe made with red and green M&Ms to make them in the holiday spirit. And I'm going to show you a bunch of tricks along the way to make sure your cookies turn out great, because the way you mix your cookies, the order in which you do things, and some small tips and tricks along the way will take your cookies from good to great. So this first cookie is my childhood wrapped up into a cookie. My mom made these every year of my childhood. They are beautiful. A crackle cookie is made in a certain way. Do not substitute anything in this recipe. This is one recipe that needs to be made as written. We're trying to get this beautiful crackle effect. It's a black and white kind of tuxedo look. And if you start to change things or mess with it, you will not get the same effect. The original recipe, I actually texted my mom and said, "Mom, I need the crinkle recipe." She texted me this hilarious magazine article that she pulled out of a magazine many years ago. I'm going to try to find the original source and I will put it in the description below. She doesn't know where it came from. So you guys know I'm a health coach. I typically have whole food ingredients, really healthy options for you. And I also believe in the 80-20 lifestyle. You'll see a lot of smoothies, soups, salads here, really hearty, healthy meals. This is a dessert. I don't want to mess with it. I want to make it exactly how it is. We'll start by melting 8 ounces or 1 cup of chocolate chips. These are bittersweet chocolate chips. You could also find a chocolate bar. You just need 8 ounces of chocolate. If you're using regular chocolate chips, that is 1 cup. Chocolate burns really easily, so I'll show you how to melt chocolate in the microwave. Okay, so the way we melt chocolate chips in the microwave is on 30-second increments. Now the first 30-second increment, you stir it, it's not gonna look melted at all, but we do need to move the chocolate chips around. Keep going for 30 seconds at a time until you get something that's half melted and half not melted. At that point, you're done. We don't wanna burn the chocolate. Once half of the chocolate chips are melted and half are not, you're just going to gently stir it because that melted part of the chocolate chips will melt the rest of them. That's exactly what you're looking for. Let's set this aside and let's sift together our flour, cocoa powder, baking powder, and salt. We use baking powder in this recipe, not baking soda. They're 2 different things. So I need 1 1/4 cups of flour. Always spoon and level your flour to get the right amount. You just don't want to pack the flour, you'll get way too much. And then we need 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. You can really use any baking cocoa powder for this. I like a dark chocolate or a bittersweet chocolate, but whatever you use, just look for a baking cocoa. You don't want to use a chocolate milk powder or something like that. All right, we need 1/2 cup. Again, fluff it up. I'm using my 1/4 cup measuring, so I'll do 2 for 1/2 cup of cocoa, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now my butter is unsalted. If you have salted butter and it's the only thing you have, use it and then skip the salt. Salt actually enhances the sweet flavor. Let's sift this together. Beautiful. These cookies, like I said, are just my childhood. We had these only on Christmas every year, and they are decadent and wonderful. Make sure you get all of that. Kind of push it down if you need to. You don't want to waste any of your ingredients. We've got our melted chocolate. We've got our sifted ingredients. And now we need to cream together the sugar and the butter. So the reason you sift the flour and the dry ingredients together in a recipe like this is it gives a fluffier cookie. We need this crackle effect on top, so we want these cookies to be really fluffy. Now let's cream together our sugar and butter. I've got 1 stick or 1/2 cup of unsalted butter. I would not sub vegan butter here. Sometimes I'll let you know in our third recipe, in the chocolate chip cookie recipe with the M&Ms, you can substitute vegan butter. In this recipe, I wouldn't substitute the butter. And also make sure your butter is room temperature. This will not work with cold butter. And you actually don't want to melt the butter because the molecular structure of butter changes when you melt it. The cookies will spread too much and you won't get that crackle effect. So if you forgot to leave the butter out, take it out and then make these cookies once it comes to room temperature. So I've got 1/2 cup of unsalted room temperature butter. If you don't have a mixer, you do not need one. You can use elbow grease and a spatula and do all of this by hand. It will just take a little bit longer. I actually really like this KitchenAid mixer because it has these silicone ends on it, which I think is really nice for making cookies and any of your baked goods. So if you're in the market, I always link everything I talk about in the description of my videos. The link to print this recipe is also in the description of the video, so you don't have to like write this down or anything as we're talking. Now we need to add 1.5 cups of brown sugar to this butter. Let's do 1. We're also going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. When you make cookies, you want to put the vanilla extract in with the butter. Vanilla extract is fat soluble. And when you put the vanilla extract into the butter, it actually gives you a deeper, better vanilla flavor in the cookies. So we'll cream this together for 2 to 3 minutes until it's nice and light and fluffy. Okay. Scrape it down. Already smells delicious. Now we need 2 eggs. And of course, you can always, if you're nervous about it, crack your eggs into a little dish first to make sure there's no shells and that they're good. But I'm a rebel. I'm just putting both straight in. This dough needs to chill in the refrigerator for 2 hours. I know it's really hard to wait. So it doesn't matter if your eggs are room temperature or if they came right out of the refrigerator. So let's mix these in. You just need to mix the eggs in until they're nice and mixed. And now we're going to add our melted chocolate. Let's get all of this melted chocolate in. I should have used a smaller bowl for my chocolate. It would be easier to scoop into this, but you live and learn. Get all the chocolate in there. Mix that just until the chocolate is incorporated. Let me grab the whole milk. You could use 2%, although you'll lose a little bit of the texture. So again, because we're going for a very specific look for these cookies, use the ingredients exactly as they're written. So I need 1/3 cup of whole milk. And now we alternate with the flour and the milk. So we're gonna go half of the flour and cocoa mixture that is nice and fluffy because we sifted it, then half of the milk, then the rest of this, and then the rest of the milk. So let's add half of this mixture. You don't have to weigh half, just eyeball it. Mix this on low. And now half of the milk. It won't be perfectly mixed, that's okay. You don't want to overmix the flour when you're baking cookies because you'll start to develop the gluten and you don't want to do that. So let me scrape this down all in there before we add the rest of it. And then the rest of our flour mixture, this on low. I'm even gonna stop the mixer at this point and do the rest by hand just so I don't overmix it. See how light and fluffy this is? So the recipe calls for dividing this into 4 equal sections, wrapping it in plastic and putting it in the refrigerator for 2 hours. Because in the spirit of only doing it how the recipe says, I'm going to do that. I have just left it in the bowl before and covered the whole bowl with plastic wrap. It worked great, but I want to make it just like the recipe says. These definitely do not bake right away because there's a specific way we're going to bake them, and the dough really does need to chill for 2 hours in the refrigerator. So I'll just wrap these up, pop these in the refrigerator, come back in 2 hours. It has been 2 hours for me, just a moment for you, but we are ready to bake these cookies. We need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to grab 2 baking sheets. I have 1 regular baking sheet here. I got this at a restaurant supply store. You don't need to spend a lot of money on these, but you'll notice that it's a light color. I have another one that I actually really like. It's a darker color, it's a different material. These cookies may bake differently on these 2 baking sheets. And if your baking sheet is a really dark color, your cookies will cook faster. So when it comes to cookies, the time on how long you bake cookies, usually there's a range. It might say like 8 to 12 minutes or 11 to 16 minutes. It depends on your climate, your temperature, your baking sheets, how much water was in your butter because every batch of butter is different. So there's some variation in that, and I will show you what you're looking for to have the perfect cookies. I'm going to use parchment paper. So parchment paper and wax paper are 2 different things. They look very similar, but don't confuse them. Parchment paper does not have any wax on it. Wax paper should never go in the oven. It will melt wax into your food. Now I've got 2 bowls here. I said there's a lot of sugar in it, and I meant it. We're gonna put a cup of granulated sugar into 1 bowl. This is what gives the crackle effect. We'll get our powdered sugar. Cup of that. All right, so I've got my 2 types of sugar. Now it's important. This is going to now allow you to roll these into 1-inch balls. You can use a cookie scoop if you want, but if you don't have a cookie scoop, just make them all the same size. When you bake cookies, you really want them all to be the same size so they bake at the same time. Let's scoop our 1-inch balls, and you can put a little bit of water on your hands, tiny bit of water on your hands in between if you need to, but this should be chilled enough that you can do this. Just be really gentle. Don't push too hard on them. There's butter here. We don't want to melt it. So it's first rolled in the granulated sugar and then in the powdered sugar, and it will look like this. And then place them, it says 2 inches apart. If your dough starts to melt too much on you, like it's just too hard to handle, then put it back in the refrigerator and let it chill up a little bit. So I was second guessing myself. I couldn't remember if we were supposed to push them down or not, so I had to call my mom.
Hello.
Hi, Mommy.
Hi, Annie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm making the Crackle cookies, the crinkles. And I can't remember, when you put them on the baking sheet, do you press them down at all or do you leave it in a ball?
Just leave it in a ball.
Okay, love you, Mom. Bye.
Bye.
Mystery solved. If you put 2 baking sheets in the oven at the same time, you're gonna need a little bit more time because it will bring down the temperature of your oven a little bit. And you might wanna rotate them halfway through because whatever cookies are on the bottom rack will probably cook faster than whatever is on the middle rack. I'm gonna wash my hands really quickly before I keep going, and then I will just roll all these out and get them in the oven. These look perfect and they smell absolutely incredible. You want to let these cool for at least 10 minutes on the baking sheet. They're very hot, and of course any cookie will fall apart right away if you try to pick it up when it's hot. But after that, you want to put them on a plate, or of course store them in an airtight container in your refrigerator for up to 7 days. Although in my house, these disappear pretty quickly. You can also freeze these in an airtight container for up to 3 months. Now I'm gonna show you a little trick that food photographers use. Sometimes you see in photos they're perfectly round. Cookies never bake that way. You can take a heat-safe glass. This is just a drinking glass. You need to do this right when you take them out while they're hot. Go around in a circle, and that will bring back most of the roundness of the cookie if they have spread a little too much. The link to print this recipe is in the description. Again, this is a dessert cookie. I believe when you cook your own food at home, it's always better for you than something store-bought, and it is baked with so much love. So make sure you come back for the rest of Christmas Cookie Week. We are also making some shortbread cookies made with almond flour. They're really simple, only 4 ingredients. And of course, our M&M chocolate cookies as well. So thanks for spending a few minutes with me. If you like these videos, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. You will get the rest of the cookie recipes and new videos every week. I'll see you next time.